Spring training, folks. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull pod.
We got to listen to it again. Season 6, folks. Season 6 is here.
Welcome back to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast, folks. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Jaconis. Spring training is upon us, and obviously a slightly different look, a little shift to the format of the show here. You can see we're on StreamYard. We're here live on the YouTube. So if you're listening to this later, we think this is how we're going to do episodes this year. We're going to record live to YouTube. So come join us on YouTube. You can hop into the chat with comments and things, and we can respond to you live there. We'll have additional content on the YouTube stream that you won't get in the podcast feed necessarily. So make sure to come follow us, Michigan and Trumbull, on the YouTube. And I'll get the front end of this thing figured out so we don't listen to the theme music 7 times as we try and get the show started. But hey, it's a new year. It's spring training. We're all just working out the kinks, getting the rust out. Luke, how you doing?
I like that. Good. I the music. Let's talk about the intro music for season 6 here. I like it. It's got whatever free intro music we took. I like it. I think keep it. You know,
linked in the video description, folks, here on YouTube. Yeah. The credits for that song. So make sure you check that out. Support that creator.
Do we need to hear it 4 times? Who knows? But hey, I liked it. Maybe we'll just keep it going.
Maybe the new way to go. Luke, before we dive into some Tigers baseball talk, I feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, we'll talk about the Tigers offseason transactions.
Yeah.
You yourself had an off-season transaction.
I did.
That we should maybe let the people know.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pull up a chair, sit down, buckle in, tie your shoes. I'm a taken man. I'm an engaged man. I got engaged this offseason, like many of the other Tigers did. I did. It happened.
He's joining the posse. You gonna get in on that group wedding for the Tigers?
Oh, absolutely. I think I saw Jake Rogers got engaged. A couple guys got married. Heck yeah, man. Why not? Let's do it. They don't know who the hell I am, but I'll show up their day as long as there's cake. So let's do it on their wedding day.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Yes, and I popped the question to my beautiful fiance in early February, and it's been a busy off season. It's been a busy 2025. And we're barely into March. Engaged, work is good, life is good, very happy baseball is back. Alex, how was your off season?
It was good. Luke, I'm going to keep the focus on you just a little bit longer.
Great. Please do.
Because not only did you get engaged this off season, it's your birthday week.
It is, yes.
So allow me to be the first person from the Michigan and Trumbull podcast world to wish you a happy birthday.
Salute. Thank you.
And it's a big one. You just said 30. Any big plans for the birthday?
I have no big plans. We're doing a dinner Thursday night on my birthday, March the 6th. I share a birthday with Shaq Diesel. But other than that, I don't know much more. I'm being kept in the dark. My lovely fiance has stuff planned, but I don't know what's happening at all. It's the honest to goodness truth. That's all I know is that I was told to keep the weekend free. So who knows? Maybe we're going to Senior Frogs or maybe an Applebee's. But hey, let's do it.
All good choices. Maybe Chili's.
Oh God, I would devour some Chili's right now. I'm starving.
It's a great thing.
As soon as this episode's over, I'm gonna eat some grub, folks. But no, the big three. Yeah, the big 3-0 week. You know, most people I feel like they dread leaving their 20s because they're like, oh man, my Neanderthal days. I got to put them behind me now because now I've got an age that has the number 3 instead of 2. But to me, I'm stoked. My late 20s into I think my early 30s are going to just be awesome. Awesome time. I'm a lucky guy. Got good friends, good family.
The best time of your life. It's going to be great.
I'm excited.
It's going to be a great time.
Now, wait a minute. Now, enough bragging about engagements and birthdays, and thank you for your kind words. I do mean it. But, we need to backtrack a little bit for Detroit sports. and talk about the Detroit Lions just for a moment here.
Let's do it.
Obviously, we did our.
That is the story of my baseball offseason.
That is true. We did our classic Michigan and Trumbull podcast bit where we always go into the offseason like, we'll probably do a couple episodes. I think this year we did one. Hell yeah.
I think it's the fewest episodes we've ever done in the offseason.
We were busy, folks. It was a busy time of year for us, all right? So take it easy. Put the pitchforks down, people. But yeah, the Lions, man, how you feeling? Obviously come short. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl, but how you feeling? Thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, obviously disappointed in how it ended. But with the amount of injuries that defense had sustained, looking at that Philadelphia Eagles team, and there was no way they were winning that NFC Championship game if they had pulled out the win against the Commanders. Just that Eagles offense too high powered for the. There were weeks this season that the Detroit Lions were signing guys on Tuesday and they were in the game on Sunday. So not a great year in terms of injuries, but it does have me, it has me excited for, if you had told me that they would go, that they were going to win 13 games this year and get the number 1 seed, I'd be like, okay, great, I'll take it. And so you got to take until you can reach that upper echelon, there's going to be moments of disappointment along the way, but yeah, it was an absolute blast of a season to watch, and I can't complain too much about. Ultimately, you get in the playoffs, teams get hot, and that's what happens. But I'm very excited with the roster to run it back again. I think I share a lot of Detroit sports fans' anxieties about having lost both coordinators. But the talent's all still there on the roster, and it should theoretically be healthy this year. So, those two things have it combined should be a great year. Again, I think the Vikings were bet more lucky than they were good in a lot of those situations. Not that they're a bad team, but I do think that, against elite competition, they weren't great. Similar to the Packers aren't yet great against elite competition. So the NFC North is still very, very winnable. That team that I am most nervous about looking at next NFL season is those up-and-comers Chicago Bears.
Wow. Hell just froze over. You gave the Bears somewhat of a compliment.
Yeah, just because they have a great football mind as their new head coach. And there's a lot of talent on that roster and then they're going to get the benefit of having been the worst team in the NFC North this year. They will get the benefit of a slightly easier schedule than the other teams play. And so I think that there's all of those things combined. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears in a wild card spot in the playoffs next year.
This is the greatest gift you could have given me for my 30th birthday. You're actually
and
saying
that's it.
Positive things about the Bears.
That's the whole gift.
That's the whole gift, huh? That's right. I'll take it. No, I'll take it. I think the Bears were a shit show this year. I think they were awful. I'm glad they got Ben Johnson. Huge season for the Bears. If you are anyone in the Chicago sports world, for the first time in franchise history, they fired a coach mid-season. Shane Waldron, I don't think made it past 5 or 6 weeks. So it was a horrible season for the Bears. It was pretty terrible outside of the first 3 weeks. But they honestly probably just should have ended the season after Hard Knocks wrapped its season. That probably would have been the right time to just don't even play the regular season. Just do 4 episodes narrated by Liev Schreiber and call it a year.
Just shut it down.
But yeah, no, I think, I'm excited for the Ben Johnson hire. Obviously, I think anyone who isn't is stupid. I think he's a great football mind. I think he's going to pump a lot of life, especially into the offense. I think he's going to work really well and complement Caleb Williams really, really well. Mm-hmm. I know some people are still not on the Caleb train, but I think Caleb Williams literally had no offensive line last year. Was sacked, I think it was a league high 62 or 63 times, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it was an awful year for the Bears. Hopefully better things to come. Honestly, right now, though, football is so far off my mind because it's baseball season, folks.
That's right.
The boys are back at it. The Tigers are getting hot. literally because it's hot down here in Florida right now. And I have the sunburn on my arms and legs to prove it from yesterday's spring training game that I was at. But baseball season's back, folks.
Yeah, baseball is back. Let's go into the off season, and I think that we should start at Alex Bregman. Obviously, I think that there's a lot of us that were disappointed that it ended how it ended. I do think that, like, kind of looking at the situation, you can see that the Tigers were used as the stalking horse to get the Red Sox offer up. That I don't know that Bregman was not serious about coming to Detroit. Detroit does seem to have been serious about signing Bregman. And so I can't ultimately fault Scott Harris for that, and Chris Ilitch, that like ownership and management were serious about getting the deal done.
100% agree. This is not a Scott Harris blunder. I won't even put the onus on Chris Ilitch either. From everything we read, they made a legitimate effort to get Alex Bregman to become a Detroit Tiger. It was clear as day he wanted nothing to do with the city of Detroit. I think you're exactly right. I think he used almost the Tigers as a bargaining chip for other teams in the league, which is why he is now getting paid $40 million to play a season with the Red Sox. It almost gives me shades a little bit of going into the 2022 season with Carlos Correa. Because if you remember, the Tigers were kind of rumored because the A.J. Hinch connection. They desperately needed a shortstop. That was the year they brought in Javi. Correa got the 1-year big deal from the Twins. And then he had the opt-out. He opted out. Then there was all the nonsense of him, failing the physicals. I think it was like the Giants and the Mets. Now he's still with the Twins. I'm not saying Bregman stays with, the Red Sox beyond the season. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Time will tell. But definitely, to me, when we went into the offseason, I was 100% on board. I wanted Bregman playing third baseman come opening day. The more things lingered, the more things we started to hear, rumors of, he doesn't want to come here. He wants more money. He wants opt-outs, not such a big a contract. Then I kind of was like, all right, I'm 50-50. By the time he decided to go to Boston, I was almost like, good riddance. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. And I don't have any ill will really against Alex Bregman. Although I did watch him go 0 for 3 yesterday in a spring training game, and he did not look good. He did not look good, Alex. Maybe he should have signed a few weeks earlier. Get to camp, get with it, buddy. But I think no ill will. If he, by some miracle next year we're in the same boat again, the Tigers will sign him. Great. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Bregman book is pretty much closed. But they put a viable effort to go get him. It didn't work out. I think he was, definitely never really serious about coming to Detroit, and that's that.
Yeah, and I think that it was definitely, obviously I would feel differently about this team not landing somebody like Bregman in the offseason if they had not had the unexpected playoff run that we did get out of them. That sort of made me go into the offseason with the exact thought of like, okay, I mean, we can't just run it back, but we maybe don't need as much as we might have in the past.
Right.
Or if you had asked me in July what we needed, which was to burn the stadium down in July.
Yes. Yeah. In July, we were going to turn Comerica Park into a spirit Halloween. And one of the assets that we sold off was a gentleman by the name of Jack Flaherty, who is back. Jack is back, folks.
Yeah.
In the good old-fashioned Detroit D. I'm so excited Jack Flaherty's back. That was I kind of forget how great of a move that is bringing him back. It really solidifies the 1 through 3 of this rotation. You're going to have Tarik Skubal, Jack Flaherty, and Reese Olson. Reigning Cy Young winner, Tarik Skubal, by the way.
That's right.
Just throwing that out there, folks, for those who may have forgotten at home. So, I mean, that's a great 1 through 3 right there. And then you have, a lot of different options where you can kind of go 4 through 5 with this rotation. Casey Mize, Jackson Jobe, Matt Manning, Brant Herter. So, there's definitely some questions to be answered there. Then you also have the Alex Cobb signing. He's hurt, but
Yep.
you know.
And I'm not saying I want to see pitching chaos all season. And I'm not saying I want to see a reliance on pitching chaos like we had to have at the end of last season. But I am saying solid 1 through 3, and then potential options for guys that can go longer and or pitching chaos depending on matchups. I'm like, there's a lot that's going to be a tough team to prepare for with the tricks that AJ has developed and has been able to pull off.
I agree. I think they're in a good spot right now, knock on wood. And I know we're going to get to injuries here in a second with Vierling and Parker Meadows, but from a pitching side of things right now, there are a lot of names on the board. And as we've seen in recent years, the Tigers and injuries, you need a lot of names on the board because, you know, by the end of the second half of the season last year, we had 2 legitimate starters. The rest was pitching chaos, which worked. And I'm with you. I don't really want to see pitching chaos return. However, if we can see almost like an abridged version of it, I do think that will definitely benefit the Tigers because we've seen them these last 2 years when they do these bullpen days, these pitching chaos days, as AJ would call it. It worked. I don't think it's viable for a full 162, but if you do it in doses and you don't have to rely on it, I think you're correct. I think it's a very tricky component for a lot of teams to have to try to go and figure out. So if used appropriately and not having to be relied on 100% of the time, I'm still for it.
Because I think it also allows you, early on in the year to maybe steal some wins where you're still getting pitchers stretched out and you're still kind of getting them up to where you want them going 7, 8, 9 innings. And then also it gives you that opportunity for, even reigning Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal is going to come out and have a bad start or two. It gives you some flexibility to have a shorter leash, knowing that you have these guys in the bullpen ready to go 2 innings.
Right.
2 innings, and like consistently across a week to go 2 innings at a time. And so you can start to afford to, if you aren't using pitching chaos all the time, you can start to go to some shorter leashes for some of these guys too. In those days where for whatever reason they just don't have the stuff, and it keeps optionality. And it's not like, okay, well, Tarik doesn't have the stuff today, so I guess we're just gonna lose because we need him to go 8 because there's nobody else who can come in and pitch the ball.
One name that I'm really watching closely during spring training in terms of starting pitching, it's a guy I'm really high on last year, and I think he was kind of such a sneaky, underrated piece of the puzzle as the Tigers were really getting hot into the playoffs in August and September, and that's Kader Montero. I mean, we all know Tarik Skubal was the man, and the rest of the pitching was essentially pitching chaos, but Kader Montero was that second complementary piece to Skubal that could at least provide the bullpen somewhat of a day off, at least 5 or 6 innings. And I'm shocked at the number of projected rotations that I'm seeing opening day, and his name is not on that list. I know his, numbers, I think, were starting to dip a little bit, and the stuff was going down a little bit towards the end. But as far as I'm concerned, that man was an unsung hero from, end of July into October. And the fact that I feel like he's already just kind of being like looked and passed upon for a starting rotation spot is like shocking to me. I think he deserves it much more than Casey Mize. Casey Mize has been around since 2020, and we've yet to really see him ever live up to his potential. I think Kader Montero did more in 2 months than Casey Mize has done with almost 5 years of being a Tiger. So, I mean, that's just, maybe I'm a bit biased there, but that's a name I'm really watching. Brant Herter's a name that I was really impressed with his limited. And then obviously, the big one, I don't even think I said his name at the top, Jackson Jobe. I mean, people are thinking he's got a real shot to win maybe that late spot in the rotation. And at this point, I'm all for it. So, a lot of options.
I think it's interesting because I haven't fully tuned into national baseball media just yet. But my my early impression is that a lot of people are looking at what the Tigers did last year is like, what a fun story. And now back to business as usual in Detroit, which for the last decade or so has been losing baseball. And I mean, is that your sense as well, that like there's this kind of, and like, so like Casey Mize is getting this kind of like upper elevation into the rotation, maybe over guys like Kader Montero, because he was this high pick and he was talked about for a long time. And so people are just like, oh yeah, I mean, that's the name that I recognize more than Kader Montero.
Yeah, it's like they didn't do their research from 6 months ago, and now they're giving an opinion of where they think the Tigers are going to land. I do agree with you. I think there is, and to be fair though, I do think that there is kind of that national perception of like, oh, that was fun for the Tigers. Now let's get back to that regularly scheduled 77 win season like we've seen over the last couple of years. I do think there is kind of a perception of that, maybe not quite 77, but like floating right around that 500 mark of like, maybe they squeak out 81, 82 wins. Maybe they get 79, who knows? But also I think to the credit of those voices, I am a believer of, I got to see it more than once to believe it to some extent. I mean, that was a blast of a season. That was truly a blast of a season. But there was definitely some moments, not that they were, because you can call them lucky, you could call it just magic, whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of like, holy crap moments. I can think of like 3 or 4 off the top of my head. And it's like, can they do that again? Now, also got to keep in mind, though, the reason why those were holy crap moments was because come July, nobody thought this team had any business in the playoffs because they were playing so terrible in May and June. So to flip the narrative early on, it's an easy thing to say, easier said than done. You play good in May and June. Come August and September, you may not have to rely on so many of those oh crap moments from Parker Meadows. I mean, you could just kind of coast, so to speak. Now, again, much easier said than done. I don't think, and I'm not ready to give a full prediction yet of where I think the Tigers land. And we'll say that for our rankings episode later this month. But my initial gut instinct says maybe they take a small step. I don't know. I like the moves they made.
Yeah.
I actually think they're going to kind of finish more or less where they finished last year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll like maybe 1 or 2 less, maybe 1 or 2 more. I don't know. They're going to have Flaherty again. I love the Gleyber Torres signing. I really do at second base. I'm excited to see guys like Jace Young, how they continue to kind of come out and develop. Wenceel Perez is going to get a lot of action, I think, especially at the beginning of the season with some of these injuries. JHM, I'm hoping, makes the team out of camp. And you have Jackson Joe, but I don't know. The pitching, knock on wood, if it stays healthy, I don't know. I'm not making a full prediction yet, but I think they're more or less on par with where they finished in 2024.
Yeah, I think not to kind of like force you into a prediction, Luke, earlier than you want to. I'm also not like fully prepared to make a prediction, but I have been like in preparation for the show today. I was just like thinking through like what are my expectations for the season. Like I, as a fan who, thinking about the depths of where we were in July, to the highs that we had in September into October, like these 2 bookend moments of the season, and it's like, okay, attempting to not set myself up for massive disappointment on one end, but also like I do trust AJ. I do like you just said, I like all of the moves from this offseason. And so I am like, okay, like in my head, they need to be better. And it's like my expectation is that this almost feels like too low of a bar to clear, but that we aren't having a conversation at some point in the season that's like, well, I guess it's over. That the Tigers. So I guess what I'll say, my earliest prediction is that the Tigers are decidedly buyers at the deadline. Is like my prediction and expectation for the season at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally fair. Speaking of deadline and trade deadline, and I think now we can. I guess you can't say it's an official slam dunk because we haven't seen these guys yet, but on paper, I was very, very, very critical of Scott Harris's first offseason with the Tigers and first trade deadline with the Tigers, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah,
Especially when you look back at the Erod and everything. You look at his second deadline on paper. Again, on paper, a move that we all kind of, I think my initial reaction to the Flaherty trade is like, fine, it is whatever. I don't think it really moves the needle one way or the other. You're getting Jack Flaherty back. You've already seen what Trey Sweeney can do in big league action. And then you have Theron Liranzo just lurking in the minors, who looks like he's going to be an absolute horse right now on paper. Hats off to Scott Harris. That's looking like a phenomenal trade.
Yeah, I mean, even just like the ability to re-sign Flaherty after renting him is that's incredible. That's a huge win. That's a massive coup there. Like, especially, I mean, even just like at the I feel like at the deadline we were just kind of like, yeah, man, I guess like whatever. We got something because he could walk at the end of the year, and so at least we got something out of it. It's a nice recovery from the Erod moment, and away we go. And so to see it kind of like come away from meh to great, he's back. It's only up. Like even if all of those guys flame out, like Trey Sweeney contributed, and then away we go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm optimistic though about a lot of these Tiger seasons, and they come back to bite me in the ass. But except last year was a nice change of pace. So yeah, I'm excited. We haven't even talked about. They got some bullpen help. They brought in Brebbia, Tommy Kahnle, Andrew Chafin is back on a minor league deal, I think, for his third go around with the Tigers in 4 years. So yeah, I mean, they didn't have a huge Juan Soto-esque move. They really didn't this year. But I don't really think any of us expected to, outside of maybe an Alex Bregman. They brought back Flaherty. I think in terms of names, that was probably the flashiest, followed in a close second by Gleyber Torres. I loved Gleyber Torres' reasoning for coming to Detroit. He said he had a lot of conversations with Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez. He spoke with Gio Urshela, who was with the Tigers last year. And he also just said he kind of wanted to prove his own worth, and that's why he wanted to take a chance on Detroit, because he thinks good things are here right now and he wants to be a part of it, which I think is great. Kind of the complete opposite of a Bregman, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think bringing in Gleyber, I do wish there was a little bit more of offensive help, but then I'm also kind of telling myself too, like, well, wait a minute. Now let's see now what a guy like Jace Young can do throughout the course of an entire season. They're going to give him a lot of reps at third. Let's see what Justin Henry Malloy can do. Let's see. I think Andy Ibanez is going to continue to be a huge part of this Tigers plug and play kind of offensive mentality. You're going to have your mainstays, your Colt Keiths, your Riley Greens, your Kerry Carpenters, your Jake Rogers. Veerling obviously will be here when healthy. Parker Meadows, same when he's healthy. Losing those two guys out the gate is definitely going to sting a little bit, but it does then give someone like Wenceel Perez a chance to kind of prove their worth. Do we once again give another chance to an Akil Baddoo? He's back once again, but he's hurt right now as well. So, he's got his injuries that are plaguing too. So maybe down the road you see him back in some capacity. I'm not sure. There's a lot of interesting things happening right now for the Tigers, and I think that is pretty cool. And a lot of names. I'm ready to see the guys like the Youngs, the Wenceel Perez, the JHMs, the Jackson Jobs, the Brant Herders. Give these guys a chance and let's see what can happen. Hao-Yu Lee is making a big impact in camp right now as well. I don't think we'll see him opening day, but I think maybe sometime later this year you're definitely going to see him in Detroit, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing is that it's a lot easier to swallow the idea that they're not going to go make a big splashy move for the sake of making a big splashy move. When we get all the reporting that they were actively trying to make the move with Bregman, they said this could be our guy. And so we're going to go do everything we can to try and make that happen. And if it doesn't happen, we're not going to go do a compensatory move just to make people happy that we signed somebody. So we're going to continue building the roster in I think the right way, because like you just said, you just named a ton of young guys who are probably ready to be full-time in Major League Baseball. That just continues to give the Tigers longevity as being a competitive team, and flexibility to make moves when there is a big piece available that they maybe need to package a couple guys to go get.
Yeah, keep in mind too, folks. I mean, right now you're going to have your Max Clarks at some point in Detroit. You're going to have your Bryce Rainier sometime in Detroit. So I mean, the prospect, the pipeline is looking good. I got to give Scott Harris his kudos there, his flowers there. He's really, taken the Tigers farm system and propelled it into what looks like to be a winner, at least on paper, which, is pretty good. Let me ask you this question. We haven't mentioned his name once this entire show. I know I'm not talking about Javier Baez, who they're all saying looks like he's in the best shape of his life. I'm talking about Mr. Snorkelson, Spencer. Doesn't look like right now he's starting at first come opening day. Do we even think he's making the team out of camp is my question. I wonder if some of these injuries maybe do bode in his favor. But what are your thoughts on Spencer Snorkelson?
Yeah, I think somebody should check under his bed for some voodoo dolls that he is maybe, utilizing to open up some roster space for himself. Yeah, I mean, I as much as I would have loved Spencer to be the true 1-1, I won't be sad when we're done going back and forth about like, what are we going to do about Spencer? Yeah, I would rather he not make the team out of camp, and then we give some other guys some opportunities to platoon it even. Like that feels better to me than watching Spencer struggle at the plate again.
Yeah, I mean, the Tigers have done everything I wanted them to do going into this current season, which is he can be on the team. He just should not have the first baseman job waiting for him on a silver platter. And they have already been like, hey, this is not your job just automatically. So, if he makes the team out of a camp, I think you'll definitely be seeing some sort of platoon at first with him and Colt Keith. I'm very excited to see how Colt Keith is going to handle first base. I think that was a really interesting and I think the right move. I like that move a lot, especially, when, again, talking about big prospects, you got a Hao-Yu Lee who's ready to go. It seems with, sometime hopefully later this year. And, got obviously going to have Glaber there being the everyday second baseman as well. So yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we've said it the last year or so with Spencer Torkelson, but this year really feels to kind of ring true. Like this truly feels like a make or break year for Spencer, and whatever capacity he will or won't be with this team, starting the season, throughout the season, we're going to see him at some point in Detroit. I have a feeling he's going to make the team out of camp, but if he doesn't, you'll see him at some point through a call up. But it truly feels like this is the put up or shut up year for Spencer Torkelson. So we'll see what happens. I mean, hey, if you can strike gold and dial back the clock to some of the numbers he put up in 2023, that's great. That only benefits the Tigers. But, you look at it overall to 3 years, 2 out of his 3 years have been pretty abysmal. So we'll see. But baseball's long. It's very forgiving. So maybe this is year he turns around. He skyrockets success. We'll find out. You're going to have your mainstays, though, like Riley Green, or everyone who are going to be. I'm so excited to see what he does. For a full year with Kerry Carpenter. If Kerry Carpenter could stay healthy, knock on wood. Same thing with Riley Green, knock on wood. I think the Tigers, offensively, a full season of those guys could be pretty sensational.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it is a bummer to see some of these injuries in camp for Vierling and Parker Meadows, obviously, but at the same time, it is a refreshing feeling to not be like, well, now we just got to go scrape the bargain bin to kind of try and find somebody to fill in this spot. While we wait for this guy to get healthy. Yeah, to be able to just be like, okay, yeah, like looking forward to having those guys back. But until then, we got options.
Yeah, I think because Vierling's definitely ruled out for opening day. I don't know if they have or haven't made an official ruling on Parker yet. I think the last time I heard AJ Hinch make a comment, he's like, they're kind of at like, we just have to wait and see what's going on and how he's reacting phase. But yeah, Vierling's definitely going to be out for opening day. So hopefully, he rests up, because Matt Vierling, I feel like, really has kind of become a fan favorite here in Detroit. And I'm all for it. And I'm all for it too. Because when he first started, I think everyone was kind of like, what? It was one of those, again, Scott Harris moves where everybody was kind of like, what the hell? But I think, and I'll raise my hand and I'll say, there's egg on my face, the Vierling moves, the Ibanez moves, the Holt moves, all moves that I think we all kind of question, like, oh, great going, Scott. those guys have all now become some huge fan favorites in Detroit, and rightfully so. I mean, Andy Ibanez arguably had the biggest hit in Tigers baseball in the last 10 years, this past October in Houston. So, it's a good feeling right now to be a Tiger fan. It's a weird feeling, but it's a good feeling. It's not just quite the spring training, like naive optimism. No, I'm actually kind of like, no. Like I'm looking at this roster and like overall, I'm happy. There's definitely areas they can get better. But I think overall going into it, I'm pretty excited. I definitely think they have a chance to contend for the AL Central this year.
Yeah, 100%. Luke, maybe that's the wisdom of age that is coming.
Hey man, 20. Do you know what? I'm 29 for a few more days, so my early 30s wisdom age must be kind of leaking out already.
It's just slowly working its way in.
Yes, sir.
Luke, before we call this a show, any other things we want to hit?
No, I did a spring training game yesterday. Like I said, I did Red Sox Orioles in Sarasota. Was at Ed Smith Stadium. Lovely day to watch some baseball. And I'm going to the Tigers Braves prospect breakout game on Sunday the 16th. So I'll probably be able to get to see some pretty cool Tiger names when we go to that game in Venice, Florida. And I'm just happy baseball's back. It's good. Work has been busy lately, but when I have a chance to breathe and like read a couple articles or check a box score real quick or even watch an inning of a game, I'm happy. So it is a good time. I'm excited. We're back. Season 6 of the podcast. And let's make it the best one yet.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Luke. We will be back. It's still going to be a little bit sporadic as we kind of settle into what the rhythm's going to be as we go into spring training. But yeah, hit that bell icon on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this so that you don't miss a live show as we record live. We're going to get these bells and whistles working for you folks. And as you come on in, make sure, you throw some questions in the chat, throw some thoughts in the chat, call us idiots, because we certainly deserve it many a time. But folks, we will talk to you soon. Enjoy spring training, folks. We'll be back with some more updates very soon.